Hello, and welcome to the MRO Show, presented by Chadwell Supply. I am your host, Michelle Childers. Chadwell Supply is 100% dedicated to the multifamily industry. Your order, our truck, delivered the next day. On this episode today, I am very happy to have one of my new friends, Angie Drysdale, Regional Maintenance Director with Willow Property Company. That's a mouthful now.
It is.
And it's new. Well, not real new. Couple of years now.
Same company.
Same
just a
company.
different name. Same great people.
And I love the whole story, and we'll get into that at another time. But how the Willow Bridge name came about, I love that story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
But Angie actually sits on the operations committee for NAA. And during my time with Angie on that committee, she actually came up with some really interesting information where she believes that our new ambassadors for apartment communities are actually our maintenance team. So I want to dig into that a little bit, Angie. And but before we do that, how about you give a little bit of background about how you got into the industry before we dig into that?
Well, like everybody else, it was by accident, pretty much. About 30 years ago, I was looking for a position after I got out of college. I was having a hard time finding a job in that field. And a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you come work with us in the maintenance department at a community there in Overland Park, Kansas, which is a suburb of Kansas City.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into the business, started off as a maintenance tech. Had never done anything before, had been building bridges with Clarkson Construction, climbing telephone poles with Southwestern Bell back in the day.
That's interesting.
Yes. So yeah, it was a different experience. So it's more customer service related. I didn't realize that at the time.
So I guess if you were climbing telephone poles and you really have no fear of heights or any of that, or
it's interesting as the years go by, you get a little more afraid. But yeah, back then it was nothing to crawl up on a 3-story roof.
Yeah.
And nowadays with insurance companies and everyone else, we don't allow our employees to get on 3-story roofs anymore.
Thank goodness. We're just going to make them the ambassadors. Let's talk a little bit more about that, though, because I thought that you had a very good perspective on all of the things that are going on with centralization and actually a lot of the leasing professionals and assistant managers and the managers aren't seen as much. Well, they really have never been seen as much as your maintenance technicians. And so tell me a little bit about how you're seeing things.
Well, I'll tell you what, COVID was a terrible thing that happened to everyone, but in a way it was a blessing for our maintenance teams because it put them at the forefront of visibility, right? Everybody went paperless. Everybody all of a sudden panicked. We've got to do showings, where we can then just unlock the door and let someone see. Everybody fills out their service requests online. They pay their rent online. When I started many years ago, service requests were a 3 carbon copy sheet of paper that someone handed you. Right?
I use those. Yeah. Yeah. I think we probably started in the industry around the same time.
Probably.
Yeah.
And so, and the leasing agent was the point of contact for someone when they came to move in, right?
Yeah.
And then people, when they had something they need fixed, they would call the office or they would stop by the office when they paid their rent and they would say, hey, I need this fixed of the maintenance. So they had that relationship with the leasing office back in the day. But once COVID hit and everybody went to where we're going to have portals for our residents, right? They can pay their rent. They can put in a service request. They can send a text message to the leasing office or whatever. So basically, once people nowadays, when they move in, the only personnel they see at your property or from your company is going to be your maintenance team.
Right.
They see our teams in elevators, right? They see them picking up grounds all the time. They see them walking through hallways, so that is their image now of what that property is and what your company is.
Have you found that since the maintenance are being more on the front side of the business, that you're having to do any additional training with them on conflict resolution or any of those?
Definitely more soft skill training, how to interact, because, the favorite thing for any groundskeeper to do is put in some earbuds and just go to work, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to teach the soft skills of being respectful and interacting with residents, including maintenance techs, right? Take out those earbuds when you're approaching a resident or you're by a resident, right? Make sure you reach out and say hello. Create that community feeling that resident gets to know you. And that happened naturally because
Yeah.
So, I mean, as well as I do, there are some great personalities in the maintenance field, and so it's just wonderful to see them blossom. They also will, maintenance techs, when they go in apartments, they're going to someone's home and they'll have a conversation with these residents. And depending on the resident, they could be older. It could be a 55 and older community. That might be one of the few people they see all week, right? And so it means a lot to that resident if that employee is engaging. And then, conflict resolution, when you have somebody went to fix something and they didn't, for some reason, it wasn't fixed correctly the first time, you go a second time and then the resident might be a little harsh, well, you're here a second time, and I've been waiting all day, where we have to do service requests in the order that we receive based on the classification of, is it emergency? Is it a water leak? Things like that. And so they really need to learn to diffuse that. And we want them to teach them to be successful because it stresses them out also.
Oh yeah. We in fact, I was talking earlier, and I know that you know Chris as well from the operations committee. And we were talking about that stress. We were talking about that mental thing that is going on with all of our maintenance technicians out there today of, am I going to get slammed by this resident? And so many times residents now are, they're expecting a lot more than they ever have.
Right.
We are their concierge service. We are their, and to some degree, we've actually put that in there, right? Emergency maintenance. Well, what's your emergency isn't necessarily my emergency,
right.
But it's just one of those things that I think has evolved and developed. And with the prices that we do charge for our apartments now, a lot of times people think that more comes with it. However, if we go back to, when you live in a house, it's totally different, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we have to wait on things to they don't. I know you don't because you just fix them yourself, but which I really appreciate that. I probably need some instruction.
Well,
from you
and I'm very blessed to work at a company that recognizes and believes the same thing that I believe.
Yeah.
About maintenance is now the forefront of everyone's company.
Yes.
So it's so important, the training. This is the first year that we have a comprehensive maintenance training division.
Oh, really?
And we've redone it where we're going to teach our employees those soft skills, maybe do some role playing, so someone will pretend to be an upset resident to teach our new hires, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. How do you
because
respond?
not everybody's equipped.
No. I mean, we don't, that's not something they teach us in school.
No.
They, unfortunately, we need to have that, definitely. And one of the things also in our maintenance survey that we did, we found out that, they have a high level, the maintenance teams have a high level of respect for their properties. And they wish that the resident would actually have that same respect.
100%.
And
yes.
so, I mean, are y'all doing anything on that level with them possibly
it goes back to engaging with the residents, right? The more we engage with the resident, the more apt that they will buy into. If they see us picking up the trash and that we care about our community, then that just seems to envelop the residents too, right?
Right.
And once they get to know these people, they're like, oh, if I set my trash inside my car outside, Johnny's going to come by and have to pick it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can really do those things to try to steer your residents into, buying into the community, because you've got to get them to buy into that they live in a little tiny town. That's what their property is.
Yeah,
Whether
is.
it's mid-rise, high-rise, or garden style.
Yeah.
Creating that this is their home, and we want them to be happy. And things do happen, and life can be hard. So just the little moments of, say you get on an elevator, and a groundskeeper or a porter is on an elevator, and they just ask the resident, what floor are you going to? And then they push the button for that resident. You don't know what kind of day that resident's had, right?
Right.
You have no idea if they just got yelled at work because they've been late 15 minutes every day because unfortunately they're having to take care of a family member or something before they go to work. And that little gesture can mean the difference to a resident. It's just the tiniest caring things that we could do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what are some of the ways that you actually help your technicians maintain a good impression? What are some of the things that you if you wouldn't mind sharing that with me?
Sure. It starts from the top down. So I work a lot with our maintenance supervisors, right, who lead the maintenance teams at the site level. And so teaching them good leadership skills. It used to be back in the day, maintenance supervisors got promoted because they could fix anything.
Yeah.
My maintenance supervisors, I have no doubt, can fix anything in the world. That is not a question. What we need to teach them is good leadership skills and good communication skills. And I work with them on that. And then we trickle that down to the teams, right? So then they're teaching their teams. They're getting their teams to buy into the investment of the property, and that's extremely important. It comes with training,
That's awesome.
and it's got to stop from the leader of the property.
Right.
But you also have to loop in, your business manager, so that we're all setting the culture
and talking the
for
same
that
talk.
property.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
company culture can be the best, but if you cannot transcend that to your site levels, that same culture of caring for our employees and caring for our residents, you're going to set yourself up to fail.
I agree with you. So do you have any examples of any of your people who have worked with you about how the way that they appear as an ambassador for Willow Bridge?
I can give you a
community?
prime example. We have a property, and this is a recent one, in Kansas City. It's about 48 acres. It's huge. It's garden style. It was what everyone likes to call vintage,
Oh,
right?
vintage, yes.
So it was built in the 80s, basically,
Yeah.
is that transition to that. So, they have a very large team. They have 2 groundskeepers because it's such a large property, and mature trees that's older. They still have dumpsters. They don't have a trash compactor. They don't do valet trash. The residents take their trash themselves. So we had a Veterans Appreciation Day for Veterans Day. And I found it so touching when I went to visit that site that day. They had all this display in the clubhouse and recognizing that some of their employees are housebound, right? They had a veteran. He's about 80 years old. And the groundskeeper came in there and got a little American flag and got everything that they had displayed and took it to that resident personally, him and his wife. And it made the man tear up. And his wife was so thankful. So it's little touching things like that. And he did it because he cared, right? Yeah. He cares for his country. He cares for these veterans. And he cares for his residents at this property. It all boils down to that. And so little things that they do, that's the culture you want to build.
Right.
So
it's that sense of community
Yes.
that you build with that when you have people going that little extra step
Right.
to provide a little piece of goodwill.
Yes.
Yesterday I heard Jay Shetty speaking, and he was talking about showing people gratitude.
Yes.
And, showing that
Mhm.
resident gratitude through taking them a little token, I think is a great way to keep your heart good too.
Yes.
When you look at, I always said to my maintenance team when I was on site, number one, they were the backbone, right?
Right.
I treated them like they were the backbone. I didn't take them to the pizza party. I took them to a steak dinner. So,
Yeah.
I appreciated
Yeah.
them. Without them, then nothing else would have been possible. So I was always looking for little ways to show gratitude to them. And in turn, they did the same
Yes.
with our residents.
Yes.
And I think that makes a big difference. But um, what can multifamily leaders do to help technicians increase positive interactions with residents, especially when residents are unhappy or frustrated? You have any little tips there?
Well, I think that what leadership can do, to help site teams is recognize those that are already doing that, right? So others can see, what's going on, oh, it's a reflection of me going out and I took something negative and I turned it into something positive, right?
Right.
So first thing is to make sure that someone's recognizing the ones that are doing it well, so they know if they do it well, okay, that's how that works, right? The second is giving them the soft skills, again, the training. What do you do when you've gone and someone fixed their air conditioner yesterday, but it's still broke down again today?
Sometimes it's trial and error.
Right. Instead of playing the blame game, how do you handle that? And so going through and teaching those skills, again, starting from the ground up for the groundskeepers, the porters, the housekeepers, is huge. And listening to the resident, right, is so important, because chances are they're really, they're upset about that air conditioner, but there's other things in their lives that are making them, feel restricted and angry or whatever.
I remember being on site and having somebody come in the office and being very angry,
Yes.
And then it's like we fixed their problem. And the next day they came back in with flowers and cookies and apologized for their behavior. And and they felt bad about
Yes.
the way that they had treated us, but they had a bad day.
Yes.
Like they had gotten it at work, so they brought it home with them, and it just kind of is a trickle down effect, right? Unfortunately, too bad everybody can't be like you and happy all the time.
Right.
Every time I see you, you're always smiling.
Thank you.
And you're always passing along, and no wonder your teams are learning so much about being ambassadors over there at Willow Bridge. And because that energy just comes out of you. And like you said, when you start at the top with your leadership,
yes,
and you're showing that, then it trickles down to your maintenance team, your leasing team.
Real quick, Michelle, to go back to that last statement, is also to follow up with those residents after we've corrected the problem.
Yes.
So that they know it was important to us, right? So we got it right the second time, but we want to call you even the next day and say, you know what? We apologize. It took us twice. Sometimes this happens, and we want to thank you for your patience. And sometimes that alone, right? Recognizing that maybe your company didn't fail because things happen. We're all human, right? We're not perfect.
Yes.
Nobody wrote the code for us.
Yeah.
But also following up when something happens with a resident and they're unhappy. You can't just, think you fixed it and not reach out to them.
Right. One last thing, and I know it's not in any of the discussion that we had previous to us actually sitting down for this little chat, but now that we are looking at our maintenance technicians and our supervisors and our maintenance teams as being those ambassadors to the properties, when you're hiring now, are you looking for any different type of personal skill sets?
Sure. You're looking for a personality, someone who enjoys people, right? Because again, they're the face of your company. So you want to find outgoing people. Now there are places for people who, certain things that you can do for shyer people, right? But you really want someone who is probably confident, especially starting at the groundskeeper position, because that's where we're growing our own. We all know it's real hard to find maintenance people right now, experienced maintenance people. So you want to look for those starters that have that personality, that have some confidence, that enjoy people, because in a way they're a salesman for your property and your company.
I couldn't agree more with you. Well, I look forward to next year, you presenting at NAA.
I'm excited.
And building more onto this whole concept that you have, because I think that it is something that's been overlooked in the past, of how important the outward appearance was of our maintenance.
And giving them the tools that they need.
Yes,
Clean,
yes,
nice
yes.
uniforms to wear,
Yes.
let them have that pride, giving them the tools they need to solve the problems that they have. Because, nobody wants to come to work and fail, right? We've got to supply them with what they need to do their jobs well and be successful.
I agree with you. Thank you so much, Angie, for being with us.
Oh, Michelle, it was my pleasure.
And
Anytime.
sharing all of your perspectives. I can't wait to sit down
Well,
with
I'm
you
so
in the
happy
future.
that people are realizing how wonderful our maintenance teams are.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the MRO Show, presented by Chadwell Supply. If you enjoyed this episode and found it useful, please rate us out 5-star on your favorite podcast service. You can also listen to more episodes at chadwellsupply.com/podcast.